I can't confess to? Do I need to sit next to you for fear I'm going to get tomato slaughtered today? Specifications for you. See, I don't know what he's doing over here. I told him, let's take our shit. He said, hey, let's make this one enough you can put it in the cat in. Well, this is what you know from the American sugar. I mean, if that's the only place we do. I wouldn't toss it out. And everything flips off and you kept walking. But when I talked to him, it's this very good. Slow this. Put the existing sign, because this is supposed to go. Okay?
The first time he's had to miss school as teachers.
Bring it. Well, maybe this is, he's got just to mention it here. The smoke put from right here down and the illuminated parking lot. This is now a ramp. This one. You know?
I'm trying to picture it in my head.
Okay, here's what this is one of the cities that I'm into, and it should be the cheaper road.
Good.
See, I don't know anything that represents this right here. This one has a pedestrian walkway
Got dirty.
to a non-public.
Just in time for all this rain we're gonna.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. If we don't intend to do a permit, this would be pedestrian.
Guess we were married to.
No, I haven't heard from him, but he told me
Yeah, that's
and if we do this slow, because this should
is 10 o'clock, and it is time to call this meeting to order. And we have the pleasant announcement that our pastor, Beata Hall, from Valley View Methodist Church, is going to lead us in prayer. And if you would stand, please.
Yes, good morning. I'm Pastor Beata from Valley View UMC. Let us pray. God, may all those who have gathered here today in this Commissioner's Court be under your watch today. May God be in their heads and in their understanding. May God be in their eyes and in their looking. May God be in their mouths and in their speaking. May God be in your heart and in their thinking. May God be in their dreaming and in their planning. May God be in their hoping and their denying. May God be in their leading and their decision making, so that all the work they do here may continue to bless those of us who live in Cooke County. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Pastor Beata Hall, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now it's my turn. Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, thank you very much for being here. I'd like to say thank you to all of our audience today. Do we have any public comments on any agenda items that we need to? Okay, nothing there. So item number 6 is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda includes non-controversial and routine items that the court may act on with one single vote. The judge or a commissioner may pull any item from the consent agenda in order that the court discuss and act upon it individually as part of the regular agenda.
I like to pull K.
Commissioner Hollowell would like to pull item K, which is deliberate and consider possible action on the updated revised Cooke County Library 5-year long-range plan 2023-2028. All right. Anybody else?
I make the motion we approve the consent agenda, less K.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Snuggs to approve the consent agenda minus item K. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Arndt. All in favor?
Aye.
Now let's take item K then.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
Hi, I am good, Gary. How are you?
Good. K says deliberate and consider possible action on the updated or revised. I don't know that we can do anything other than file it, because we can't commit future courts to anything over the next 5 years.
In the past, this has never been a problem. It's basically the same exact plan, and it's a requirement of the state library. With the changes of the statistics, the things that are in red being changed, and some changes in the technology services. One of the big services we use bought out the individual services, so those have all been put in together. That's the only thing, but it is a requirement from the state library, and this is the same plan that you guys approved up until last year, 5 years ago, or the court did.
Yeah. I don't disagree with the fact that we need a plan. That's good. Again, I don't know what we've done in the past, in all honesty, but I do know for a fact we can't commit courts for 5 years. We can't commit a future court. Like I said, as always, you've done a good job documenting. Take no issue with that. This does say it commits the Commissioner's Court to some things, finances, and says this is going to be our priorities.
This is all done on surveys that we've gotten from patrons and residents of the county. Also, this plan is used almost in every grant we write. They ask for goals and objectives. They want how the grant is going to work with the library's goals and objectives. And so if you don't approve it, I can't use this when I write grants. And I used it in Pentex just this year. I've used it in the Texas Book Festival. It's been used in the state library grants we've gotten in the past. I'm not asking for a monetary thing, and it has to be done every 5 years. So if things change, then the objectives and the goals would change. It's just stating these are goals and objectives that the library has to our community based on what the community has requested.
Is this you do it every 5 years, or do you update it every year?
Every 5 years. This is an every 5-year plan.
Yeah.
That's what the state library requires.
I didn't know if it's something that you come back every year and kind of update it, 5-year plan, you know what I'm saying?
No, they just require a 5-year plan. I can check and see if they will just, I don't know whether they will let me do it every year. I don't know. I know the requirement is a,
Some of them, every year you come back and you update your plans because things change, you know.
absolutely, and those are the things that have changed since that last plan is what we've made.
Well, plans change, so I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
living
I
document.
understand. But the objectives, most of these are not things that change. Like early literacy is not something that's going to change. I mean, unless you guys decide that early literacy is not one of the things, or having large print books like Goal 1 is for senior citizens, and helping them with the use of computers. I mean, daily we get elderly people who come in that don't know how to get onto the internet. That's a technology goal, which is number 6, and that's a goal on number 1. Those aren't things that are changing.
I think since they're just goals, I don't see an issue.
Well, they are goals unless at some point they're brought back to our attention and said, hey, you signed off on this. This is the goals for the Commissioner's Court.
No,
Here, let me make a suggestion here. First of all, would it hurt to bring this back in 2 weeks?
no.
Can you?
It's just
doesn't
that
have to be done today.
No, it's just that
Okay.
we're almost at the end of 2023,
Right.
so we
What I-
need
what I
to.
would- Yeah, what I would like to suggest then is that you and Commissioner Hollowell get together and work this conflict out here. I can understand his.
Yeah, I don't think it's a conflict.
Well,
I'm sorry, Gary, maybe you do, but to
No,
me,
no,
it's not a
con-
conflict.
Okay, it's not a conflict.
I'm pretty distraught over it.
It's a conflict between procedures, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
No.
And if you would, the two of you work this out, and let's bring this back in 2 weeks.
We'll visit. You know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I know it's a monetary thing for you is what you're worried. None of that in the past or in the future is, to me, they're not really, it's not monetary stuff.
It's truly not today, but basically these goals do what they should do is plan to enhance
Our
county government at
community
some
and,
point in time.
right.
But, it could suggest real easily that we spent $523,000 last year, $400,000 on salaries, not counting the $200,000 or $300,000 that we spent in remodeling, and we're not good enough.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, and I mean.
That's what these goals say. I mean, basically,
No, that's not what they're intended to say.
Okay.
Okay,
But anyway.
Okay,
Let's
okay,
complete this discussion in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Bring it
thank
back
you.
then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Item number K will be revisited on the next Commissioner's Court. No action at this time. Item number 7, deliberate and consider possible approval of the Treasurer's monthly report for September 2023.
Move to approve.
Move to approve Commissioner Snuggs. I'll second that. Item number 7, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And there are none. Thank you, Ms. Treasurer.
One more.
Pardon?
You got one more.
One more.
item Sounds like you dismissed her and she's got another agenda item.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Then item number 8, okay. Deliberate and consider the possible approval of treasurer's quarterly report for July, September 2023.
Move to approve that one too.
Now I'll move to second that one too then. So we have a motion, we have a second to deliberate and consider possible approval of the treasurer's quarterly report for July and September 2023. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There are none. Item number 8 passes 5-0. Item number 9, deliberate and consider possible nomination of candidates for Cooke County Tax Appraisal District for 2-year term commencing January 1st, 2024. Would anybody like to start off on this?
Anybody talk to Doug?
I've talked to Doug, yes.
Okay.
It's my understanding Doug has 5 nominees from the other entities already. If we nominate anybody, which we can, up to 5 people, then they would be voted on, and the top 5 then would be selected for the board. As it stands right now with 5 nominees, those 5 would automatically become the board nominees, or the board members. I personally do not have a nominee that I would like to
I don't either.
bring forward, nor does Commissioner Snuggs. Commissioner Hollowell, would you like to?
I visited with Doug. I don't have any problem with the 5 names that they're presenting, but I think
Okay.
it's my understanding this is the last week for nominations.
Yep.
And then once the nominations go in, then they will ask us to distribute our votes at some point in the future.
Yes.
But this is just for the nominations.
That's
And
correct.
as you say, with the 5 names, that will ultimately be the folks, but we will still have to decide which of these candidates that we want to give our votes to.
Exactly.
So,
But those 5 will eventually be the board members. If there are no further nominees, either one of y'all have anybody you would like to nominate for?
do you guys know who the nominees are? Would you like to know who the nominees are?
2 of them.
Yeah. I mean, they've got them, they don't have, obviously our agenda doesn't have them, but it's Nathan Dempsey, Nancy Brennan, Leon Clement, Carl Ma, I believe. Mon, and Joe Knight. And I don't have a problem with any of them, but you guys would need to know in case you,
Nor do I,
They're willing
and I,
to step up and do it.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So our action is go with Doug
All
Smithson's
right.
recommendations.
say again?
I think our action is to go with Doug Smithson's recommendations.
Well, actually, we have no action on this. We don't have any nominees, nobody to put on the board. So that item is no action. We'll revisit it when it's time to vote. Item number 10, discussion regarding Texas Health and Safety Code, Section 364.012, and possible action regarding preparation of proposed solid waste ordinance, a takings, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Impact assessment pursuant to Chapter 2007 Texas Government Code and notice of hearing for the proposed solid waste ordinance. Mr. Sicking, would you like to present this, present Eric?
Let Mr. Eric
Take it away? I'll be happy to. My name is Eric McGee. I'm with the law firm of Allison, Bass and McGee. Probably all of you know us and see us at all the conferences that we speak at. Jim Allison is the senior partner, created the law firm in 1983. We've been in existence for almost 41 years coming up in January. You all know Bob Bass is the county road expert. Unfortunately, I think I may have the distinction as the trash expert, so it's not one that I came into easily, but probably the more appropriate term is environmental. I do a lot of environmental cases as well as constitutional law cases and employment law for the law firm, as well as general counsel work for County Judges and Commissioners Association. I think Commissioner Sicking saw me speak at a conference, probably for newly elected, if I'm remembering correctly. As you know, counties are only given the authority that they have by the Texas legislature. We're very unique and distinct and different than municipalities, where cities have all kinds of zoning regulations and things like that counties just do not have. The four areas where you think of county zoning regulation, and that's not really an appropriate term because it's not zoning, is game room regulation. Sexually oriented businesses can be regulated as to where they're located, as well as game room regulations. And then when it comes to solid waste disposal, a lot of people call it landfills. That may not really be an appropriate term, but that's the goal, is to determine the growth of the county and determine where a landfill would not be prohibited. It's a very distinctive language that's created in Chapter 364 of the Health and Safety Code. The misnomer out there is that Chapter 364 somehow grants the Commissioner's Court some sort of authority to license or permit or regulate solid waste. It does not. All of the solid waste, if someone wants to come put a transfer station in your county, a landfill in your county, they have to go to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the TCEQ, go through all of the permitting procedures found in the Texas Administrative Code that allows for that. What this authority grants you is the authority to say, here is all the areas in the county where a landfill would be prohibited. The only place where it's not prohibited is over here. The over here doesn't mean somebody could ever put a landfill there. They still have to go through all the requirements of the TCEQ. But it allows counties to plan where they're starting to see commercial growth, residential growth, where you know you may be putting an airport in a few years, where you know you may be putting commercial or business investments in your counties, or residential or groundwater conservation areas, or other public utilities that you may have. That's the area of where you would like to look. And that all that really does is make a landfill company or a waste management company come back to you before they go file their application before the TCEQ. Because whatever area you put it in, unless you already know one's coming, or there's already a landfill currently in existence here in the county, that would be the preferable area to put one if you already knew they had an application at TCEQ or the landfill existed. Then you would say, our landfill out here on Farm to Market Road, whatever, that's the only area where it's not prohibited. Everywhere else in the county, it is prohibited. So if some waste management company wants to come to you and say, we would like to put a landfill in your company, they have to have you amend that ordinance beforehand. An example, and I think you probably heard this, is a city and a county worked together because the city had a landfill. We designated the city landfill as the only area where it would not be prohibited. And everywhere else in the county was, quote, off limits under 364.012. The interesting thing there was the city needed to wind up expanding its landfill to purchase 300 adjoining acres next door to it. And so they couldn't do that without first coming to the Commissioner's Court and getting the Commissioner's Court to change their ordinance to allow for the expansion onto the 300 acres. So it has some authority and meat behind it once you put it in place. And so there's lots of different ways we look at it as we help y'all through that process to determine where it's not a policy decision for me. You're all elected in your own precincts, but help guide you through that process of where we see it's most beneficial to the county. Because I did one recently where the county had no landfill at all, and a commissioner said, I have probably the farthest reaches of the county that it's very difficult to access. I say we go down this county road to another county road to a dirt county road, and let's designate an area out there where it's not. The confusion is this designation is really only found in the minutes of the commissioner's court or the ordinance itself. It's not something that goes on somebody's tax records. It's not somebody that goes on their deed records. It really has no effect on somebody's tax or deed records or value of their property. Of anything, in a perfect world, it would probably shoot the value of their property up exponentially. And I think Commissioner Sicking probably heard this story. There was a family that had been in the county since about 1836, 1835, had been landowners through a Mexican land grant. As you can imagine now, I'm a 7th generation Texan whose family obtained land that same way in East Texas. It's divided down so numerically now that those large land grants don't exist. This particular cousin of these relatives lived in Houston, had not been out to the grandpa's family property in years and years and years. She signed a confidentiality agreement with the company. He wanted to do some exploration. Whether she actually knew it was for a landfill or not, she did not. She did not disclose to any of her cousins or relatives that she had sold her several hundred-acre tract of land for $5 million, well above any appraised value anywhere near the county, and had signed $1 million confidentiality agreement as part of all of that. They went out there, did all the testing, and the first time the county or any of the neighboring landowners, which are all her relatives, knew anything about a landfill coming into the county, it was too late, because they had already filed their application with TCEQ. So there's nothing you can do on the front end other than pass this type of ordinance. On the back end, you can fight a landfill. I'm working with the county that has been fighting a landfill for 11 years. We've spent close to $1 million fighting this landfill, and we recently won, but we didn't win at TCEQ. We won at FEMA under the flood insurance rate map, because it had been designated as Zone A, and they had never done a detailed hydrology study on that, and we eventually convinced FEMA and the firm to change that map to a detailed study, which then showed the landfill in a floodplain. So there's a lot of expense that goes into it when you fight it on the back end, and that's why I talk about this on the front end. There's probably been about, it's hard for me to estimate without counting over the years, but at least 50, if not more, counties have already passed these ordinances. A lot in a zone such as yourself, where you're on a major thoroughfare, and cost of transportation tends to go way down for the transportation of trash when you have major corridors that run through your county, whether they be interstate or a state highway. Though that type of road system causes it to go down. So that's where we would next, if the county chooses to move forward, is probably set up a workshop where we can openly talk about the areas of the county that we would want to start looking at and making some decisions regarding to those. The rest of the agenda item says a takings impact assessment pursuant to Chapter 237 and the notice of hearings. I put that in the agenda item just so I can kind of explain that process. In Texas, we're a private real property preservation state, meaning property rights are above everything else. And so the legislature created the Private Real Property Preservations Act, which is in Chapter 2007 of the Government Code. It requires the Attorney General's office to come up with a takings impact assessment, meaning whether any action the Commissioners Court does would be considered a takings, taking something away from that property owner. Well, so far, when I've done these takings impact assessment, no one has ever demonstrated to me that you have a constitutional right to put a landfill on your property. So there would not be a takings, but you do have to follow the steps and adhere to the guidelines of the Attorney General's office to make sure you conduct that takings impact assessment and you review each piece of property significantly. Chapter 364.012 says that you are required, before you adopt an ordinance related to solid waste disposal, that you post it for 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper before the Commissioners Court considers it. Chapter 2007 of the Government Code, the Private Real Property Preservation Act, says that you have to provide notice 30 days before any action that has been reviewed under the Private Real Property Preservation Act. So you have to take those 2 into consideration, and so the first notice has to go out 30 days before the Commissioners Court considers any ordinance and notice of a public hearing, but you also have to comply with 364.012 and publish it twice in the newspaper, the first one being at least 30 days out before you take that action. And so that's kind of the brief summary. I could stand up here and tell you how each county that I've worked on has done it and give you plenty of ideas, but it's better if we probably have like a open forum workshop where each commissioner can talk openly about the ideas that they have.
I have one question here.
Yes,
And
sir.
I may have missed it, but one question here. I'm a board member of the joint Grayson County, Cooke County landfill, which is over in Grayson County.
Okay.
Over there. Would there be and as far as I know, that serves both counties quite adequately, and everybody's happy with that. Would there be any problem? Could it be possible to just say there is no area that would be suitable for a landfill in Cooke County?
Okay.
I mean, if it's not needed, and
The legislature has not written it that way.
okay,
And then you used a word that I'm going to steer you away from.
okay,
You used the word suitable. And under 363.112 of the Health and Safety Code, there is some language in that chapter which really talks about municipality solid waste disposal. It also provides for county regulation there. The word suitable is used in 363. There's never been a challenge to suitable, and I don't know what suitable actually means as a legal term. That tells me that you've done some sort of analysis to determine what means suitable and what doesn't mean it. I steer away from that entirely because 364.012 just simply says this is the area where it's not prohibited as far as the county's opinion is. That doesn't mean it's suitable to put a landfill out there. That doesn't mean a landfill company can get out there and dig a ditch and water spring up from there. So clearly it would not be suitable under TCEQ. But that's not your responsibility. There are certain areas that I always steer you away from, and I'll give you some examples like that. In the Texas Administrative Code, when an applicant comes before you to get a landfill permit, there are certain areas that are strictly prohibited from placement of a landfill. One, right next to an airport. That's because so many birds come in and out that it's a danger to the planes. Two, anywhere where there is a known floodplain where any portion of the landfill is susceptible to floodwaters. That doesn't mean you can't build a dam around it. But those two areas automatically would set any type of ordinance up for a challenge on its face of being invalid. The same thing if you went out there and said, these 15 acres right over here, the county owns it. Let's say it's a county barn or something way out in the county. We're going to just designate those 15 acres, and then that way we're not worried about any landowners or any citizens or anything like that. That'll just fall on the county. Well, 15 acres is not suitable or acceptable or an adequate size to put a landfill in. The Texas Administrative Code says that there has to be certain parameters, not only access roads around a landfill, but areas for berms and vector control and other things like that. The smallest landfill that I know in existence in Texas is in a metropolitan area. It's about 95 acres, and I can't remember if the footprint is 95 acres or if the entire tract is 95 acres. But at least if the footprint was 95 acres, you need a certain perimeter around it. So we always say you're looking at something around 125 acres or larger, just because you don't want to pay me money to come help you go through this process and have a piece of paper that's automatically going to be subject to some sort of challenge for invalidity. We had a landfill company that beat the county. The county was going through this process. They were what I would call a tri-county, where the judge sat on one and theirs was in another county. A landfill company came in, realized the county was looking at this type of ordinance, went ahead and filed their application before the TCEQ. A fight broke out between the county, two counties, and the citizens' rights group against the landfill company. And ultimately, the citizens' rights group were able to prove in the borings to see how far the groundwater was down. They actually flooded some of the borings, and then that caused some hydrology analysis for the landfill company, and their permit got sent back to them, and the county was able to adopt their ordinance in the meantime. But the one I was telling you about with the lady who probably doesn't have any family members anymore that communicate with her, their landfill is literally less than 3 miles from an already existing landfill. So it's two landfill companies that are competing for business in, it's next to Travis County is what it is, but it's not in Travis County. They're in the adjoining county to Travis County, but the two landfills, you almost can see them from one another. And the one has plenty of capacity. One of them has plenty of capacity, and the other one is now probably going to be serving a lot of those exurbs or suburban areas, but even further out where you see a lot of residential growth. And that could be some of the experience that you could have. It may not be that it's enough to service your county, but a neighboring county may be experiencing enough growth that if they obtain those contracts for that waste disposal, then it justifies that. Because waste management, I guess there's always a reason why there's just a lot of money in it. Everybody generates trash. Every business generates trash. Every household generates trash. Everybody's got it, and it's all got to go somewhere. But that's a good question. It's not, you can't say the whole county's off limits. You have to say there's somewhere where it's not prohibited. But the term not prohibited, I don't want y'all to, that's the explanation that shouldn't scare you away, because that never means a landfill company could ever come on the not prohibited area. It's their duty to do all the exploration and the work. And usually if you pick wisely, it's somewhere that's not even cost beneficial for them to come here. It's just a placeholder for then you to get to come in and make them come back to you.
So that would be, the answer would be, no, we can't do that, but
Right.
Find a place that's hard to get to.
But I wouldn't tell you to go out here and select 500 acres right next to I-35. Right. You know, I mean, that you're just giving them the access right into it, you know.
Right.
You're saying you at least need a minimum of 120 acres or something.
At least, yeah, somewhere
Just
right.
keep you from getting in trouble.
And that's not because the statute requires it. It's just me trying to advise you where you do not want to have a problem. So I always ask when somebody says, hey, let's look at this particular area, I always ask the commissioner who brings that idea forward, is there any floodplain issues in that area? And they usually will go talk to someone who knows where the FEMA, I mean, y'all all know better than I would know where your growth is going and where your ideas are. So I kind of have some standard questions of where's the nearest airport? Where is the floodplain in that area, and things like that.
So would it be beneficial for us to go find a floodplain area and say that we wouldn't prohibit a landfill there?
You can't put it in the floodplain. Now, it can have some floodplain on it, but then I'd need to look at the tract of land. But a lot of ideas, like, I mean, here, it's different. I just did one in East Texas where it's timberland that's grown timber through multiple timber contracts. It is so difficult to even get to the piece of property because of those old timber roads that are, quote, county roads. They're essentially dirt roads. That it was just better to designate something way off of a major road out in the middle of timber country. Because one, there's not any residents out there. Two, no landfill company could ever afford the trucking cost or transportation cost to even take it out there. And everything would have to be upgraded to such an extent that that's where a county, if you were picking one, you would, if you had to absolutely have a landfill, you would want to have it. Another one was like, we did one where there was an EPA cleanup site. We've done one in an industrial park where it was very, very industrial, and it was several hundred acres adjoining the industrial park where they were doing some manufacturing. So clearly there was no residences truly around those areas. So you can start looking at ideas like that. If you have a river authority in your county or some other governmental entity that they may own some large tracts of lands, to give you some ideas of maybe we could designate that. One county decided that they would use the 10,000 acres of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice prison farm in their county. That's where a landfill would not be prohibited. I kind of told them, well, you never know if the deal's right. The state may sell some of that acreage to them. We were able, by the way, that the prison farm had been donated or purchased by the county, that it wasn't a large enough, it wasn't a 10,000 acre tract of land, but the prison farm itself sat there, and we went through the appraisal district records and found like a little 500 acre tract kind of in the middle of the prison farm. But everybody comes up with unique ideas of how they want to look and evaluate these. And that's what that workshop would do. Hopefully you'd all go back and do some homework and come up with some ideas, and then when we had the workshop, we could openly talk about how that would be. And then from there, if we all settle on something that you want me to go back and draft up an order and do a takings impact assessment, and one that you would want to move forward with a public hearing on, during that workshop, I would draft all that up, and then the Commissioners Court would probably approve the proposed idea and give the county judge the authority to notice it in the newspaper and set a public hearing date and those types of things.
Are we looking for a property owner that would, so that the county doesn't go off and purchase 125 acres? Or
Yes, I have a county that just did that. In this same case, they, one of the commissioners knew someone, because I had been giving the example of, let's try to stay away from a state highway, an interstate, a farm to market road of good quality. And he's like, oh, I know this place where you go to this farm to market road and turn on a county road. And he goes, no, it's my county road, it's in good shape. But then you go and there's a dead-end county road that spurs off of that county road, that it's pretty much one guy in his 80s that lives out there that's owned that property. And they went and talked to him, and he's like, one, I don't care. And two, my grandkids don't know that it's tied up in a trust when I die. So they can't go sell it if it's worth $1 million. It would take the trust, to sell the property. And he's like, I'm perfectly happy if you do that, It's one of those things where they just happened to know somebody and went and did it.
I mean, this has been on the agenda for weeks. It's prompted lots of questions, and I think the last thing we want to do is alarm the public.
Right.
Our goal is to prevent a landfill.
Correct.
Not create one.
And that's what this whole thing is.
And so we need to be looking for an individual out there that's willing to allow us to designate up to 125 acres of their property with absolutely no intention of there ever being a landfill there.
And it does not go on their deed records. There's nowhere this is filed. The only place this gets filed, your ordinance is kept in, obviously, your minutes of your commissioner's court, because y'all have taken a vote on it. And then I take your ordinance and mail it to the TCEQ.
So the-
Unfortunately, there's not a master list at the TCEQ. It's really a notification process because I can't find every county that has one of these because the TCEQ doesn't keep a running list. So they don't even have it on file for what it is or where it's at. It's really, if by chance, the first person in the Texas Administrative Code that an applicant for a landfill permit has to notify is the county judge for the commissioner's court. So if the county knows they've adopted this ordinance, all they do is send a letter back in and say, your application has to be withdrawn. And the TCEQ sends it right back to them because you can't have a landfill where there's been a restriction.
So the court's action at this point in time is we need to be brainstorming to see if we can find a spot and then get back with you.
Yeah, to set up a workshop. I think unless there's just something out there that, it'd be really easy if the judge said, we already have an existing landfill. The commissioner's court wants to just designate that landfill here in the county. You don't have that, but if you come up with something where but if you come up with something, like you said, that is a piece of property that's out there and the rest of the court, once y'all talk about it in here in the open session, I can draft everything up, we can have it ready for the judge to go out for notice. But if you need a workshop, I can come back up here and we can work through 2 or 3 options that you may have. And the more homework y'all do, the less time it's in any workshop or commissioner's court meeting.
Prior to Tazewell, we had a landfill off of 902, City of Gainesville.
Yeah, it's no abandoned or vacated one. But I don't
So
know how
then
many
you would
acres
need
are
to
there.
pull the TCEQ records to determine why it was vacated. Old landfills have either done one of 2 things. They've reached their capacity, or there was some sort of issue with the way that they were constructed back in 1948, where it didn't have a proper lining, or there was some sort of leakage issue, and closure was due to something back then by the TNRCC, who governed it before the creation of TCEQ.
What did TNRC stand for?
Texas Natural Resources Conservation Commission, and then some of that went to the Railroad Commission, and the bulk of it became the TCE, Texas Commission on Environmental
Let
Quality.
me get you a badge that says trash man.
I know. But, I mean, those are just all ideas that none of that should be even, the public should not be concerned about any of these, because nobody's in here pushing, this is to not get a landfill. It's not to encourage a landfill to ever come here. This is to take the steps necessary to let the citizens of your county control those aspects for you. Because if you do nothing, then all they have to do is go file their application with TCEQ, and it's a totally different fight at that point and a completely different expense at that point for the commissioner's court and the citizens ultimately. But that's why you have these public hearings or these workshops, and then people can come in and ask questions that may help them in understanding that we're not asking a landfill to come in. It's just like when I've done these sexually oriented businesses. We're like, we would never want a strip club or a video shop to come in. And we're like, but if you don't have the ordinance in place, then they can come in anywhere it's currently not zoned to come in, outside of city limits or whatever. And so it's not an encouragement. It's really just telling where if we had to have one, that's where it would be. Same thing with game rooms.
Eric, it seems like it may have been 15 years ago, I think, that we talked about this very subject. If we would have done it, we would have done it through your firm. Is there any way you can check and just see if we've addressed this in the past?
I will look at, we have a master file that I can pull out of archives and just double check and see what issues it would be. But it would be something that would actually be in the minutes of your commissioner's court. And if I find a file, I'll look and try to make sure and see if I see it. And then I can direct somebody to let's look in a time frame of minutes and see what was done.
Yeah, she can word search if she can get a time frame.
Okay. And I'll do that.
Now, I would just ask it because
Yeah.
I seem to remember several years ago that I know we talked about it. I don't know if we took an action, but every one of us has been the newly elected official training and been prompted by some of this.
So I've talked about this since '08. I know I look super young, but I started in '06 at the firm, and I've been talking about this very issue since 2008. So for over 15 years, I've been talking about it. But I can look. I know I didn't do y'all's county before because I have a little checklist every time I show up at a county courthouse. I'm trying to get all 254. And so today I got to check y'all that I actually walked in the courthouse here today.
And admired it.
And admire it. It's beautiful when you look up at the top. I think I'm at around 200 now,
Really?
so
Wow.
I'm trying to get my other 54. Some of them are going to be hard, but over the 2006 till now, I have my little checklist of every county courthouse I've stepped foot in.
Welcome to Cooke County.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Do we want to schedule a workshop?
I have my calendar right here.
What?
I say I have my calendar right here.
Yeah,
We can.
I'd like to keep it moving while we're.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do a little brainstorming before it and be ready.
And if you want to do some brainstorming and then have the judge or you, Commissioner, call me with 2 or 3 options of dates, then I can make myself available. I know kind of what my calendar is for the next 2 weeks. I will not be here. I'll be in trial. But outside of that, I have a lot of freedom towards the end of November and beginning of December.
Do we want to trial run it and brainstorm amongst ourselves to start with before we, try to do some footwork before we bring Eric in? Yeah. Yeah. Well,
We can do that.
And any one of you, and this is, you don't have to go through Commissioner Sicking. If you have an idea or you talked to somebody in your community or you went over to the appraisal district and looked up something, and just call me and we can talk about the pros and cons of it, before that. And then we can open it up in full discussion for everyone in an open session workshop. But you calling me just to see if you're on the right track or if you think this is a good idea is not going to influence anything. It's just something maybe we can save some time through the process.
I'll probably route anything I do through Commissioner Sicking because he's been the point of contact and he'll know everything going
Yeah.
on that way.
I know I talk fast about trash, but here we go.
We'll host our own workshop, or
Okay.
whatever we want to do, but stay in contact with you
Yes, sir.
during the time. And then once we have formulated some sort of plan, then we'll possibly get you to come back up here. And,
Yeah.
and
I'll be
help us
happy
out or
to.
Whatever, okay.
And then the process moves fairly quickly once we have that workshop, if everybody comes to a consensus.
Yeah.
Usually we have a workshop and maybe a special commissioners court meeting afterwards where they authorize me to go ahead and draft the idea that y'all have come up with and give you the authorization to publish it in the newspaper. Then I'll get it all put together, give it to the judge, and then that creates that 30-day window of we get it in the newspaper. What do y'all have, a couple times a week newspaper? Or is it a daily?
Well, we got a couple of times a week and then we've got a weekly.
Okay. So whatever y'all's publication requirement is, if it's the couple of times a week one.
We usually do the weekly because it hits more of the county.
So then we just want to time that appropriately and get it in that week, and then we'll set the hearing date for 30 days following that, and then we'll have it run that second week.
And that way
After
we
that.
can say, well, that guy from Austin said it needs to be right over here.
Exactly. I'm fine with that.
Well, we would be too.
I would rather you have one in place and
You're right.
blame me for everything than not have one at all and
I
then
got you.
find out down the road in 2 years that although y'all have plenty of capacity at your adjoining one for your own residents, that there has now been significant growth north of y'all's neighbor down south with numerous residents, and a landfill company thought it would be a great idea to truck it on that pier not too far down the interstate.
About 15 years ago or so, I don't remember exactly when it was, there was a proposed landfill up in the north part of the county right here. It might be what you were talking about. But they all got up in arms and they fought it tooth and nail, and they were able to defeated. I believe the landowners were both attorneys and were able to get it shifted, and I believe that's what eventually became Tazewell over here in Grayson County, I think was the ultimate resolution.
And that's what the clear understanding of the citizens need to be. This is not about a proposed landfill at all. This is only,
Non-proposed.
this is about, I don't like the word zoning, but this is about the county maintaining where, if it ever came into existence, it would not be prohibited, because that's the only authority the legislature gave you. They didn't give you the authority to say, okay, go put a landfill over here. That it's still up to them to go to TCEQ and take all those steps.
Right.
So you said you'd be available like the second week in November?
I should be. Just give me some dates and
Right, okay.
we'll look at it.
We'll get together then and see what we can come up with and keep you in the loop, and then possibly have you come back up here if we need to then.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sure do appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very much.
I'll see y'all later.
Safe
Thanks.
trip back. Tell Bob we said hey.
I will.
Thanks.
Thanks again.
No, guys, pull your mic down. They're having problems hearing us on the stream.
Oh, are they? Okay. Okay. Item number, item number 10 was no action at this time. We have possible meetings to discuss what we discussed here in item 10. Item number 11, deliberate and consider possible action regarding burn ban.
The hot topic.
No pun intended. No pun intended.
Yeah.
I provided you guys, good morning, Ray Fletcher, County Fire Marshal. I provided you the current Keach-Byram drought index, which has us at 559, with a low of 352 and a high of 658. And I think it's pretty obvious to see where areas that are more or less dry on the map. And also the current drought monitor that was published on Thursday has us still in a severe drought. And I would say approximately that we've had a third less rain at this point than we would normally have. And so our soil moisture is dry. The rain we got a few weeks ago didn't immediately green up, but there has been some greening even because of that rain, and conditions are better than they were. The likelihood, I feel, of having that dramatic disaster type fire across multiple properties and county roads, I think right now we're out of that threat. And that if we recognize the precipitation that is forecast over the next week, that we should be in pretty good shape. The question really is, how likely do we feel that precipitation is going to get here or not? And will people then burn responsibly when they're allowed to? So at this time, I think we really have, I would be comfortable with two choices. One, I think if we lifted it today, that that there is enough humidity and green out there that we should be okay. But that if you wanted to wait a few days and come back and make sure it rains and call a special meeting, then that may be another possibility. And certainly the third is to leave it on. But I would say right now that I feel like we're probably okay, that we will not have that large, disastrous, multi-property county road jumping fire in the foreseeable future. Certainly we reserve the right to come back and reinstitute it at any time if the conditions warrant. But I think if people will burn appropriately, manage their fires, and do the right thing, follow the Texas outdoor burning rule, only burn what you're allowed to burn, then I think we I think we can probably safely lift the burn ban at this time.
What do you think, Adam?
But that is a decision for you, gentlemen.
I mean, we've had a few fire departments running, but it hasn't been crazy, so I'm kind of like Ray with that. I mean, I think we could lift it. People just need to be diligent with burning.
My thought is after it starts raining and they burn, that's when we start getting everybody stuck.
Yeah, that's true.
But they can get a little bit burnt before it rains, you know? Any thoughts?
I'm with you guys.
What do you think?
I'm good with,
I feel like we're solid on the rain coming.
Yeah.
God, we need rain.
They greened up quite a bit over there, northwest side. I think it'll be all right. I mean, suppose we've got a frost coming next week, so hopefully we get some winter grass coming on. You know,
Ifs.
that's right.
Anybody making motions?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Move the
Commissioner
burn ban.
Sicking makes a motion to lift the burn ban. Commissioner Hollowell seconds that motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There are none.
Thanks, sir.
That motion to lift the burn ban passes 5-0. Item number 12 is to deliberate and consider possible action regarding the Main Street parking lot. Commissioner Sicking.
We have no action right at this minute.
Item number, should we bring it back?
Yes.
All right, item number 12 is no action, bring back. Item number 13, deliberate and consider possible action regarding real property on Highway 82. Commissioner Hollowell.
Shelley, we have anything to talk to today? Ed, if we need to talk to you, we do it later. Okay. No action.
Okay, item number, bring it back.
Yes, please.
Okay, item number 13 is no action, bring it back. Item number 14, deliberate and consider possible action regarding broadband services.
Pam emailed me everything that I needed to look through to see what the next step is, but I took some time off last week and I didn't get to it, so we'll bring it back one more time.
All right, item number 14 is no action, bring back. Item number 15, deliberate and consider possible action regarding the annex. And where did Rick go? Okay, actually, we have, that's on there for the slab, for the walkway, the back door, so that we could enhance the loading ramp on the back. And so that's so we can better serve our voters and also do curbside voting. Is that right, Pam? Primarily, but it'd be used for a whole raft of things. It'd be used for moving stuff in and out, for IT, for instance. There'll be a lot of uses for ramp, porch, that sort of thing, right at the back door of the Shad Pulte. We have 3 different bids, or excuse me, we have one quote.
Quote, yes. He's still waiting on another one.
That's right. And we're still waiting on one, so what I would recommend no action, and we'll bring it back again for the next. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to ask this, these plans?
Yep.
Are these plans that Rick gave to each person he's getting a bid from? Or did the
What he
person?
said, each one got the exact same.
Okay,
thing.
Yep.
okay, good.
Everyone's got the same
I'm
thing.
sorry if I missed that.
Did you get
Yeah, I've got all this.
you got the?
Yeah, I was just making sure that everybody's bid's
Okay.
gonna bid the same thing, so we had that problem a while back where
Okay.
everybody's bidding something different.
So item number 15 is no action, bring back. Item number 16, deliberate and consider possible action regarding various grants.
No action.
Item number 16 is no action, bring back. Item number 17, deliberate and consider possible action regarding the Crest Building.
I think we can pull that. No.
No?
Did we get
No,
Hags
no, we
finished this week?
All right, let me
Yeah.
sort of
You got more info on that than me, Judge.
give you a synopsis of what's going on with the Crest Building. It was thought that all actions had been done satisfactorily. However, understand that the old air conditioner, which was replaced, is still sitting up on the roof of the Crest. It's supposed to be removed today. There are also parts of a fan that were left in the basement or the utility room of the Crest, which is also supposed to be removed. Other than that, I think that's probably all that needs to be done. And Rick's checking on that even as we speak. Is probably why he isn't here right now, in fact. So with that, I would say that we would take no action on this and bring this one back next time too.
Yeah, that's
Do
fine.
you have anything else on that?
I don't.
Okay.
I still need to see what we need to do with them for them to release the final figure. And it's probably gonna be hinging on that AC and everything too.
Right. I'm pretty sure it will be, yeah. Item number 18, at this time, and it's 2 minutes after 11, we will go into executive session in compliance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes Annotated, consultation with county attorney regarding proposed actions and advice to the court, real property issues, contracts being negotiated, or any personnel matters. So at this time, I'll ask that we clear the audience. Okay, item number 18, was we went into executive session. Item number 19 is we will come out of executive session at 11:25. We actually do have a couple of motions. Commissioner Snubs, if you would, let's hear the first motion.
I make a motion to allow the county judge to sign a transfer agreement for bulk fuel.
Second.
Second, okay, motion Commissioner Snubs, second Commissioner Hollowell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. That motion passes 5-0. And Commissioner Hollowell, do you have the second motion?
I'd make the motion that we authorize the county attorney to send eviction notices to the occupants of the property that we own on Highway 82.
Second.
All right. Motion is to allow the county attorney to send eviction notices to, how many was that?
I don't have a number, Judge.
Oh,
We don't have a number. There's,
I think he mentioned, well, that doesn't make any
There was
difference.
a list, but not all of them are occupied now.
Okay. To the occupants of the Highway 82 property in question, do I hear a second?
So,
Second is Commissioner Sicking. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And there are none. The second motion passes 5-0. Which brings us to item number 20, adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
That motion is Commissioner Snubs to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hart. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. We adjourn at 11:26.